Hello guys, and welcome to a new Wargame video today by me, Vulcan, and Val.
Hello.
Today we have another of the 3v3 Reddit tournament games, and in this one, on the red side, we have the Refugees with Austrian Oak, Future Pro, and Barry Dillon. And over on the blue side, we have ANZ with Cheer Up, Nandemonai, and Faust. So, what are your thoughts to begin with, Val?
Well, ANZ has been like absolutely wrecking this tournament. They've just like destroyed. I think they definitely have the best record. I mean, I'm not going to quote it because I don't want to give away what happens in this game or not. So it'll be really exciting to see because this is the first one of their games I think that we've casted. So we'll see if these guys are actually the unstoppable juggernaut or if the Refugees can beat them, because they've proven in the past to be a very, very good team in this tournament. So it'll be exciting to see how it goes.
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, like I say, we haven't casted ANZ yet, and they are a very, very good team. Faust being a amazing player in this game. I think he's like top 10 maybe. But either way, it'll be interesting to see how they play out this map, because we haven't seen this map yet in the tournament. It is Hop and Glory, and the strategies on this map can vary. So you can go through the middle, you can go down the bot side at Charlie and Golf, and you can also like push around the top. That's normally where the three like contentions are. What do you think about
that? That's a pretty accurate description. I think one of the more interesting things about this map is that you have these two side sectors in Juliet and Charlie. Because often what will happen is teams will leave like a skeleton force on one side and try and attack the enemy's one. So in the case of the red team Juliet and the blue team Charlie. So we'll just have to see if these teams follow that, because I'd say that's the more default strategy of this sort of map.
Yeah.
That I've seen the most. So.
What about decks? What do you think about those?
Oh, decks. Yeah, I should probably have a look. So we'll start with the blue side with Faust, Cheer Up, and Nandemonai. So Faust, it looks like he has a Sovco deck, I think.
It's pretty hard to tell because ANZ is actually taking a very long time to place out their vehicles, which is interesting.
Yeah. Actually, the 1M is the Russian version, isn't it? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'll say Soviet for now, but imagine could very well be a Sovco deck. Nandemonai, again, I don't see any Korean units yet, so I'm gonna call that a Soviet deck.
Yep.
And probably the same with Cheer Up. Actually, Cheer Up seems like he's gone for maybe a Soviet armored deck, because he has two of those TUMs, which you can get otherwise, but I mean, you don't usually see it. So for the moment, I'll say they're all Soviet, but they very well have the potential to be a Soviet-Korean deck later on if they bring out any of those Korean units. So on the red side with the Refugees, we have Austrian Oak, who has what appears to be, again, a Soviet deck, which has the potential to be a Korean deck, but so far is just showing as a Soviet. Barry Dillon, who is playing Eastern Bloc, and yeah, I think that's just looks like a straight Eastern Bloc. Very interestingly, he started with a ton of helicopters. I think in the last game we casted with the Refugees, he did the same, and it didn't quite work out for them against the 6 Bertino start team.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see if he can pull off kind of a heli cheese strategy this game. And then Future Pro has a Soviet deck.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting to see Barry Dillon opt for this helicopter strategy. I believe their reasoning in the last game for doing it was so that they could overwhelm enemy AA early on. So we'll have to see if it works like that this time round, because otherwise those helicopters are just going to get blown out the sky again, and that was not very fun to watch last time.
Well, heli rushes only work if the enemy doesn't bring like 2 Tunguskas, 2 Tors, and whatever else was in that bottom side. I think a Shilka as well. So that was really heavily defended with AA, so they have to make sure they don't make the same mistake here.
It might be interesting to observe what kind of AA the Red Side's actually bringing, because they do have the 2 Tors, don't they? And they have a Tunguska M in there. They've got a Book M1. They've also got a Strela 1M. So quite a lot of anti-air. Also the Mi-24V and the Ka-52 do have those Igla anti-air missiles. Over on the top side, Estrella 1M as well. So quite a lot of AA to contend with, and I really don't think that a experienced team like ANZ will allow the refugees to pull off that kind of helicopter push. I don't necessarily want to call it a helicopter rush because we don't know quite where they're going to go with it yet. But yeah, it's going to definitely be hard for them to work with that.
Yeah, it is always a risk. If you bring just one of anything, it's always a risk that you'll get countered by whatever hard counters that sort of unit might have.
Yeah, so the game's underway, and we do have a lot of units going from the start, obviously. Definitely on the blue side, I think they've opted for a lot more cheaper units. We do have a lot of BTR 152s with the Yakudays, is that in those?
Yeah, the Korean Reserve Infantry.
Yeah, and then we have BMP3 support, a lot of SU 122s, some BTR 90s in the mix, and the BRDM 3s with the good recon. So quite nice setup of forces for ANZ. They've kind of mixed in the heavy units as well. And I think what they're actually doing is having one player control the heavy units and one player control the cheaper units. That seems to be the case so far. But we do have an engagement in the middle, the Mi-24Ws coming up and picking off a few units. They are actually starting to overwhelm this AA already, taking out 2 of the Strela 1Ms. And you can see they're using the Strela 1Ms because they're wheeled, and they are going to get ahead of that convoy.
Yeah, that was very nice. And you can't forget either just how good those Mi-24Ps are against helicopters. They have the R60M Molnia missiles, which are actually normally seen on the planes. So very, very good. Probably for the best packed anti-air helo, but a very good attempt. And they did succeed in their objective. They captured and put some troops in this town in between Foxtrot and Golf.
I tell you what, this push from ANZ is incredibly interesting. They haven't sent any of their troops really toward Foxtrot, which is really interesting. They've just sort of gone straight across with all those units towards Delta, which I thought was strange. But Barry Dillon actually did a really good job with those helicopters in sort of denying that push completely. Took out a lot of those APCs, a few BTR 90s and so on. So a nice job in disrupting ANZ at the start.
I'm kind of interested by this. They didn't send anything to Golf, so they've kind of shown they're willing to give that up completely. But they sort of push across. I think they were going to try and go for Delta, but they just got completely bombed out, really. Maybe their AA wasn't far enough in time, but I mean, look at all those squads that are having to walk all the way in to Delta now, so we'll have to see if they can recover.
Cheeky few units moving around the top side there, but being picked off very quickly by the Zalos and the T-64 BMs. The Spetsnaz grew the only remaining survivors there. Now in the middle, it looks like ANZ's sort of consolidating their units into small pushes towards Delta, and like you say, I think that was definitely what they were aiming for with that push, but it was disrupted so well because the Tors were so far behind the main convoy, because all those BTR 152s were wheeled. They were well ahead of the tracked AA.
Yeah, a T-80UM went down up in the top side to a MiG-27, which was definitely worthwhile. I mean, the MiG-27 did go down as well, but some very good. We've seen some very good planes already used and some air support by the red team with those initial bombing strikes and now this tank. So this is looking promising for the red team.
It is. The MiG-29S actually coming in there nearly took out the Tunguska with a bombing strike, which was nice. Yakuda is finally into the town, but getting torn up by the Moskaya Pehota, which is to be expected. That reserve infantry not going to last very long against elite infantry. MiG-27 attacking in Foxtrot as well. We've got some infantry engagement at the bottom side of that town, and it's not often you'll see the red side get into that town at Foxtrot at the beginning of the game, but that because of the way in which ANZ moved their forces, it did allow them to do so.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of interesting. We'll have to see if the blue side can actually sweep in and secure Echo. I would wager not, but if they don't, they're definitely a disadvantage because the red team secured Golf at the bottom.
Yeah, they definitely need to make this work eventually, else, like you say, there will be a massive disadvantage at this point. We've got a MiG-27 coming in again for Future Pro, and is that going to go for the kill on the T-80UM? Definitely is, and it is going to get the kill. Unfortunately goes down to the KA-52 and a couple of books there, but that's going to weaken the push towards Echo and Delta for sure. Now, the reason I think that ANZ completely neglected Golf is because for the blue side it's actually a really hard sector to reinforce, and it does overextend you quite a lot in this kind of map. But because of the way in which they pushed towards Echo and Delta, they've really shot themselves in the foot here, and at the moment they are still at a lead in terms of conquest points because the red side is actually really lacking on command vehicles. I didn't really take that into account.
I think what's happening is that the red side is they want to cement their hold. I think they're probably surprised that they took Golf as easily as they did. I mean, even with, like you were saying, the the disadvantage for blue going to Golf and reinforcing it, it is still a sector you expect them to capture. So I think they're opting to sort of plug in all the gaps in their defences, make sure they've got the sectors that they actually hold, and then I think we'll see the CVs come in and the points lead swing in their favour.
Amazing strike there. This MIA MTV in Echo got side shots onto the T-64 BMs, which inevitably made both of them die to the Mi-28. That was pretty incredible, like how much damage that helicopter was doing with its rocket pods to tanks.
It's a very, very formidable. You can never really overstate the value of those rocket pods against basically everything in the game that isn't airborne. They're really good at stunning as well.
Yeah, a couple expensive aircraft went down in the bottom side of the map. This is quick air engagement there. One MiG-25 PD went down for ANZ, and I think it was something a bit more expensive for the red side. Didn't see exactly what it was though. We do have some infantry getting into the town at Delta, which is actually quite surprising for me. I don't know why the red side's letting this happen. Obviously they're not going to be there for long with the air support coming back in from Barry Dillon, but they shouldn't be able to get there in the first place. The Spetsnaz GRU on the edge of the town should be able to snipe any of those infantry as they approach the town.
Yeah, that's the way you'd expect it to go. I am quite interested that, kind of in how And is pushed into Echo, because they've made some really good use of some Gornostrelki in that Mi-28, like you mentioned earlier. And now they actually, they have a good chance of pushing the red team out.
Yeah, I think the main reason it happened was because the red side actually overextended the forces they had in Echo. So like those two T-64 BMs got side shot by those rocket pods, and that really hurt them.
Yeah, you always have to be really careful of making those sorts of mistakes. Now this Tunguska is just getting chased down by the Gornostrelki.
Yeah, well, those two Spetsnaz squads didn't last very long at all. And the Gornostrelkis are getting some nice kills onto those BTR-80s, though. Spetsnaz GRU moving across the open, and we do have the Tor coming into play there to shoot down that Mi-17 before they can finish off the GRU. MiG-27 picking off a couple of APCs in the middle. Didn't quite get the second one, but definitely took it down to low health. Su-22 M4P is going to get away with its anti-radar strike, so that was pretty lucky. And the second APC is finished off in the middle. So the map's kind of returning to the way that we would expect it to be. A large force of infantry in Foxtrot for the blue side in order to defend that. We will see probably some small units coming around the bot side towards Gulf eventually, but Echo is now under control of the blue side, and the reason that's happened, I think, is mainly due to the fact that the blue side can reinforce from Juliet, and they're a lot closer to reinforce their units than the red side will be.
Yeah, that's why I think this map is a very interesting one, because you do have those two very close to contested area reinforcement points. So we'll have to see how this carries on panning out. The red team getting a CV into golf, so they will tick up by 1 point for a while, but I think there's a T72K one command coming in for Echo from the blue team. So that point lead is not going to, that's going to be neutralized very quickly, and Ant has a massive lead right now in terms of points.
Yeah, that is something definitely worth pointing out. Because ANZ had that +2 lead for so long, they've actually accrued a 122 point lead before the red side even got any points, which was ridiculous, really. That shouldn't happen, especially considering the amount of map control that the red side had. They just didn't invest in enough command units at the beginning of the game, and that really caught them out so far in this. So, yeah, they are definitely going to start paying for that once the command unit from the blue side gets into Echo, because, like you say, it will neutralize the points completely.
Yeah, I think there's something very interesting to point out, and I think that this is one of the reasons why this map is not quite what you'd call a balanced map in a way. Is that for the red team, getting into Foxtrot from Golf is very difficult. There's a ton of open ground. They just about managed to get some space, not screw in the back there. But for the blue team, getting from Echo around to Delta, you have all this cover, all these buildings to attack through. And I think it is definitely easier for the blue forces up in Echo to push Delta than it is for the forces of the red team in Golf to push Foxtrot.
It does depend, though, because if the red side get towards Echo, assaulting Echo from Juliet is actually pretty difficult.
It can be, yeah, but I mean, in this particular case,
nice push coming down from the top side here. A KA-52 did go down, though, to the DHS MI-24P, which was pretty lucky, actually. But yeah, the Su-122 is coming in order to screen for the VDV-90 and basically take out this Muskaya Pehota. They've also used the Buratino to try and napalm some of that infantry before the push takes place. So a nice combined strike here. I think it's pretty much all three players investing in this push. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, a very glaring fault in the red team's position Delta has just been exposed there, where a bomber just came in and took out the CV. I think, yeah, they are bringing a spare one that they luckily had en route. They only have one Buck M1 in this entire zone, and the Su-24M just came and destroyed the red team's CV there.
Is that MiG-27S or 29S going to get those bombs onto the Tunguska? Yes, they are. The bomber did go down, so a trade there. These Su-122s are doing so much damage to these Gornostrelki as they reveal themselves with their HGM fire. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, the HE just can't be understated. That 5 HE is really, really strong.
Yeah, look at them chunking this Moskaya now. They have actually lost a lot of their VDV, though. There's only one squad of VDV left, and they did, well, there's actually 2 left. But initially they brought in about 8, I think they had, and they've lost all of those so far. But they are definitely making progress, slowly but surely, and more reinforcements are coming up the road.
Well, one of the problems that I just said for the red team, that they only had one AA piece, is, the blue team also had the same. I think they had some Tunguskas initially that got taken out by Seed. So they're only now bringing in some more Tunguskas to try and quell this very formidable air force that the red team is bringing in.
Oh, those Tunguska M's haven't been microed appropriately, but the Su-22s, oh my lord! The Su-22 M4s missed all of those radar missiles. That was insane. How unlucky do you have to be for that to happen? That is crazy. MiG-27M going down as well to the second Tunguska M. Blimey, I haven't seen that in a while. That was some bad luck right there.
Those pilots definitely need firing right there, if they weren't dead, of course. The red team is pushing into Foxtrot. They've made some ground and captured some of the the building blocks. So we'll have to see if they can make that work. But they do have a lot of very expensive enemy units coming into. Oh, never mind. MiG-27 just comes in and destroys the UN in one pass.
Yeah, that was very nice. It does go down though. These infantry troops coming up from like Gulf towards Foxtrot, it's quite interesting to see because you'd expect them to keep reinforcing Delta at this point, but I guess they do have the Spetsnaz and the Gornostrelki there. Maybe things are looking okay for them at the moment. But as soon as any more infantry hits that top side at Delta, that's going to start to break very, very easily. So rather than investing on quite a costly push into Foxtrot, I'm thinking maybe they should, you know, push back from Delta to Echo.
Can I just mention how bad the red team's luck has been? The Su-22 M4P just came in and missed 2 of its rockets against an on-radar Tunguska again.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because, like, if you turn the radar off whilst the missile's in flight, does it actually go off target?
No, it doesn't, unfortunately. I had lots of bad experiences with
So
that.
they are just genuinely missing. And that's just horrible. Like, the accuracy on those aren't even that bad. Like, it should be at least 1 in 2 rockets, but that's almost 5 rockets now, and they haven't got a single hit.
That's 50% accuracy.
It's just terrible now. All that MiG-25 PD's got completely free reign almost. That Book M1 not really firing fast enough to take that down. It's going to land 1 shot. But the MiG-25 PD managed to get all of its ordnance off against those other aircraft. So still some annoying infantry in Foxtrot. From Echo to Delta, some more Spetsnaz GRU have arrived, so more infantry. We'll see if they cause an issue pushing into Delta.
Yeah, there is a very large amount of. Oh, not too large, sorry, but a very good amount of infantry with those Spetsnaz GRUs that are super good against enemy infantry from any range really. Looks like the blue side has managed to quell this push in Foxtrot as well. There lots and lots of infantry have been pulled into her. Maybe too much actually, but still enough to deal with the enemy forces.
Yeah, the Su-22 M4 they're managing to pick off one of the Tunguska now. The Spetsnaz GRU managed to finish off the Moskaya in that small town, so they are making a little bit of progress, and with that recon they will be able to reveal a few units. And oh, that was a nice hit there. The Spetsnaz GRU just attacking those VDV squads before they got out of the BTRDs, and that's going to make it very hard for the VDV to move across the open there.
Yeah, I'm slightly confused as to the choices the red team's making here, because they're only bringing 1 tank in, and that's like the last thing. So that's the last thing they brought in to go and reinforce this top side. I think they should have probably been working on bringing some more tanks up earlier on to kind of counter these enemy tanks and the enemy forces running across open ground.
I think what's happened is because they invested in that push in the middle, they've actually got a lot less points on the field right now than their opponents, and that's really showing at the moment. Obviously there is a lot of infantry coming in now to reinforce for the red side, but the quality of the blue side units is just a lot better at the moment. The Su-122s are going to make short work of all this reinforcing infantry, I think.
Yeah, definitely. They're, and like we said before, very good at killing infantry. They're very cheeky BTR.
We've also got the BTR-90 there. That's going to do a lot of damage to the infantry with the grenade launchers, unless it goes down to the Su-22 M4.
Well, that BTR-90, and it came in as a group of 2. It killed a Gornostrelki unit, both of them, in a town. Because the Gornostrelki missed the first missile, and then they just grenaded it until it was completely stun-locked and destroyed it. Very unlucky for the red team there. They've had really bad luck this game so far.
They have, yeah, and it is quite game-changing actually in some respects, because those anti-air units early on were stopping a lot of the red side's airstrikes from being successful. So Yeah, that actually makes a lot of difference at that point in the game. And now, one thing I do want to point out is how the red sides managed to deal with a lot of BRDM 3s that have been moving around the top side. And actually, another thing to point out there is the T-72B1 just shot down that aircraft with fire position, or that helicopter, sorry, with fire position. Now, that is a trick that not many people know about. But if you fire position a helicopter with a tank, the tank can direct fire the helicopter and shoot it down, which is incredible. And they just microed that perfectly in order to pull that off.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the exact constraints on how that works is, because I've not really used that much myself, and every time I try it doesn't really go too well. There's definitely a knack to it.
Well, if the helicopter's moving, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if the helicopter's stationary, it does. So you have to time it right, and there you saw them do it perfectly, which was really nice.
A beautiful push coming over the right side of Delta right now. Lots of Yukuidae supporting Su-122s.
Yeah, so what's happening at the moment is the Yukuidaes are revealing the machine guns from the Gornostrelki and the Motschützen, and then the Su-122s are firing as soon as they are revealed, and that is just chunking these infantry squads and making this push extremely effective.
This really is one of the, things to learn if you want to improve as a player playing, Russian or Sovco deck. Is this combination of fire support from the Su-122s is honestly, it's one of the reasons people pick Soviets, amongst their other things. That it's just such a good unit for the price.
Oh, this bomber coming in, the MiG-25R. Oh, it whiffed its strike completely, and that's going to allow these 6 squads of VDV to remain at almost full health, and that is devastating for the red side. That bomber really needed to hit his mark there. Those VDV have taken out so many units so far. They took out a book, a few tanks here and there. It's been pretty disastrous so far. And now the Yukuidae is actually getting to the town with the help of the Su-122s.
Yeah, the blue team is definitely going to secure Delta off the back of this. And really push even further potentially, put a lot of pressure on the spawn point at Alpha. So it's kind of interesting because the blue side did have a slightly bad start in some ways. Like their initial push was really slowed down, they lost a lot of their transports in the bombing strike. But they've really regrouped and come together and done an absolutely fantastic job of just pushing straight through Delta.
I think the main thing that's happening here is we got Faust and Cheer Up doing this combined push into Delta, and they're fighting against Barry Dillon and Future Pro. Now, Barry Dillon, because he's running what looked like an airborne deck, he doesn't have many ground forces to sort of defend, basically, against such a well-constructed push. And this is really shooting them in the foot here. And in the meantime, we do have Austrian Oak trying to push into Foxtrot still, which is just proving futile across such an open expanse of land. And he's just not doing the same thing that the enemy team is doing with these Su-122s and so on. He's investing in more expensive tanks in a lot of cases, and it's really not helping at all.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to him for trying. Like, it's not a bad push. And I mean, he may be able to make some ground if it works out with the BMP 1Ds and he does have a few Su-122s. But I just feel like the push that Blue orchestrated was just so much more well done, and it's really shown. They also brought a CV in, even before they'd fully capture it. They were so confident that they'd fully take Delta that they had a CV on the way.
Yeah. Now, if you look at the map as a whole, like in the mini-map, you can see that like the amount of units in comparison are crazy different at the moment. The massive blobs of blue and the blue on both sides, and then like the red are so spaced out, and just there isn't really enough of them to prevent these blobs from coming across at the moment. I don't think these T-72Ms are really going to be good enough to stop this amount of Su-122s and mixed in with T-72As actually.
They're I mean, they're better than nothing, but I think they will be overwhelmed eventually.
Yeah, and there was loads of reserve infantry in Foxtrot, and now that's crushed the push coming up there. The VDV-90s were picking off a lot of units with their glorious Vampire AT weapon. Now this SU-122 is going to absolutely wreck the Pichotus mech and the BWP. So there goes one squad, and the rest of the troops seem to be retreating. So I'm not quite sure why they're giving them so much room.
There's one problem that Anza's going to have. They push so far that some of the units are starting to run out of fuel.
Yeah. That's some winning problems right there.
Hashtag winning problems.
So, yeah, I'm still concerned as to why Barry Dillon's actually was retreating his units. He doesn't need to give these SU-122s so much space, especially considering they aren't supported at the moment. And him realizing that has allowed him to just push up there and kill those very, very quickly. Now, he also doesn't need to be too worried about these Yakwa days as well. He might want to push his T-72Ms further north so that he actually can get the line of sight onto those Yakwa days without having to be too close to them. Because at the moment, Faust is taking complete advantage of the line of sight there on the side of that hill.
Yeah, definitely. Although, that being said, I think they do know that there's that B1 there, so maybe he's a little worried about that. There's a Moderna coming in though, so finally a very heavy tank coming in to support this left-hand side. Although I think it's too little too late now.
I think this Moderna is like absolutely beautiful. It's such a good tank. It's got a decent rate of fire with the 8 rounds per minute, but it also has that auto cannon as well. That is very, very helpful. Now, yeah, like you were saying, the +4 lead for the blue side is amounting to a massive lead at the moment in this game, and there isn't particularly much chance the Reds going to bring this back with the amount of units they have. They've got a couple pockets of units. One's obviously heading towards Delta, and the other one is in the small town just north of Gulf. And once those two sort of lots of units are dealt with, there is no chance, and there just isn't anyway at this point in the game. They've just been completely overwhelmed.
Well, the thing you have to remember as well is it's not just like the blue team have secured a contested sector. Like that's a sector the red team should have. It's a +4 lead. So even if they retake that, they won't get any advantage. So definitely this game is over for the red team, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think basically what ANZ have realised is that they don't need to keep pushing in order to win the game. So they've kind of taken the back seat here and just sort of sat all of their units into Delta in order to just defend that against it being taken back. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure if a lot of this game was credited towards it being an unbalanced map. I don't know if it is unbalanced or not. I think it's just the way that the teams decide to play it at the end of the day. And ANZ has definitely done a great job at pushing into Delta. And kind of made short work of the defense that the red team had there.
Yeah, when I say unbalanced, I like it's not actually a big difference. It's only very slight. Like the skill of the blue team is really like that's what's won them this game. They've done some amazing combined pushes. They've defended like when the red team tried to attack into Foxtrot. They had all this reserve infantry waiting. Like I think they even expected it was going to happen. And so not only did they do all these great pushes, they had this great set of units together to do what they did. But I think they played the map a lot better. Like knowing where their opponents were sort of pressuring towards and knowing where they were weak.
Yep. So there you have it. 28 minutes and 19 seconds. ANZ do defeat the refugees. Quite interesting kills to losses. 1,500-ish more kills than losses for ANZ. So they did pretty well, I think. It's not like a massive difference. I actually kind of expected it to be more. But I guess it just gives credit a bit to the refugees for putting up a quite good defense and also attacking quite well, because by the points not being so far away from each other, it shows how good the actual pushes in the middle were. They may not have looked great, but I think in terms of like the cost of the units going down, they were trading relatively even in those pushes in the center from red to blue.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think a lot of that difference will be there was one period, I think, because throughout most of the game, every time a plane was brought out, it usually got traded. Like, for whatever it took out, AA took it out. But there was one period, I think, when the red team had like basically no AA in the top side, and there was a lot of planes that got away with free bombing strikes. So that may have accounted a little bit towards the kill death. But yeah, a closer game in terms of points than I expected, but still kind of commanding at the same time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think the other thing that also gave them the kill lead was the fact that the blue side did have more AA. So they were killing a lot more of the red side's air force.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of works both ways. But yeah, great game on a very interesting map. And I think definitely at the beginning, ANZ kind of confused me with the way that they had their units. That was quite weird. I really didn't understand why they were trying to move those BTR 152s across directly towards Delta. I don't know if they were a bit panicked by the amount of helicopters they bumped into, which that must have been the case, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is actually the fastest way across to Delta, though, from the spawn, because there's no direct connecting road between the Foxtrot side where the blue team spawned, and the Delta side. So you actually have to go, if you want to follow the road, you have to go through Foxtrot, then come back up. So I think if you fast move, that is the fastest way.
I think the road going over the bridge and past Echo is faster to Delta than going across the big old field in the middle of the map, though.
It might be, actually. I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely safer, though, because you're at much less risk of getting bombed.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there at the beginning. It was a bit confusing, but Barry Dillon did well to disrupt that. I just don't think his airborne deck really paid off towards the end of that game. I think that's honestly like him not having the right units to defend against the blue side really hindered them during the latter part of that game. But yeah, do you have any last words?
Yeah, I'd just say one thing about the airborne deck is that so this is not specifically to Barry Dillon's deck, because it seemed like a relatively balanced deck for an airborne deck, but you see this a lot more with like cheese decks. Is that if you don't get a massive advantage at the start, like if you don't manage to super fast cap a sector, they're almost always not worth it, because what you give up in that airborne deck is so important later on when you're slugging it out with the enemy sort of armored units, and you need to have those available to your team. And so, like, airborne decks always carry that risk that if you don't secure something very quickly, if you don't get a fast advantage, they really like peter off, because AA in this game compared to previous games is a lot stronger. Like the Tunguska M, for example, has an insanely good long-range missile that will shoot down any helicopter from a longer range than any helicopter can shoot back. So you just have to be very careful about that, I think.
Yep, good point to finish off. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Bye.